Hello and welcome to the next episode of Reaching Higher, a 6-part series brought to you by Ulster Bank and the Irish News. I'm Lynette and today I'm joined by entrepreneur, restaurateur, fashionista and business consultant Cara Little, who has over 3 decades of business experience under her belt. And with so many strings to her bow, she's become one of the most respected local retailers here and is a key advocate for the independent sector. Now, she's here to tell us how she started her business when the time was right for her and how she continues to adapt to change. Carol, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you and good morning, Lynette. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Well, tell me how it all started. Tell me about growing up, because I believe you're, as I said, restaurateur, fashionista and business consultant, but your background is in farming.
Yes, I was brought up on a farm in County Armagh and I still live in that area. So we live right on the outskirts of the family farm, and I had a very privileged childhood. It was lovely growing up in the countryside, and I think it gives you, it makes you who you are today. It creates that work ethic. It comes from the farming background, and I just think it's instilled from a very early age. But yeah, I still live in a beautiful part of County Armagh. I love the countryside, love walking, loving getting outside and enjoying the scenery and the countryside around me.
So that comes in with the work-life balance then?
It does. It's part of, I suppose it's how I de-stress. I do a lot of walking, and it's my kind of stress reliever. Get out in the countryside and enjoy nature. I love nature. I love watching nature. I love seeing the seasons change, and that I find helps me to keep grounded and it keeps the stress levels down a wee bit.
So tell me about your entrepreneurial skills and how you say the farming background and that experience growing up gave you the work ethic, but then how did you transform that into becoming a businesswoman?
I suppose I like a challenge and I like doing something different. I see life as one big journey, and I just love doing different things, and it has kept evolving and growing. I never set out with a plan. There was no plan. While I enjoy business strategy, I absolutely love business strategy and I love planning and organising. Early days, I didn't have a plan. I got married at 21. By 24, I went to Queen's University. I graduated and was married a month later. And I had both children by the time I was 24. And I'm now currently, this August, I'll be married 35 years. So that gives you an indication of my age. I'm 56. And so I have that's been part and parcel, I suppose, of my journey. Getting married very young, having my children very young and looking for public work opportunities. Mm-hmm. So that led me into the family business, which was my husband's business. And I just seen opportunity after opportunity there, and things have just evolved and grown from there. And I suppose that entrepreneurial spirit is in you from early days, and then when you see an opportunity, I think you latch onto it and you grow and you take it and see where it'll take.
So would you say that that's a natural trait you have and it's not something that can be learned, or do you think it can be learned?
For me personally, it's part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. I think that drive is there from an early age. I think that self-motivation and that interest in the world around you. I think the excitement of the new idea and where things are going, it never gets boring. It's always interesting. It's always exciting. And I think it is part, for me personally, it's part of who I am and my personality type.
When you got your degree and then you got married and then you had your children all in your early 20s, a lot of people would maybe want to travel or do different things with a qualification like that, and it seems that you didn't, that you decided no, focus on family and get to the next step being working in your husband's business or the family business that was close to you. Tell me about those initial steps, getting back to work, when you have children and you're trying to juggle everything.
Juggling small children 30 something years ago was much more challenging probably than it is today. Maternity leave was short. Expectations of probably the mum were higher. There wasn't just the same amount of shared parenting. Now my husband's exceptionally good. He has always been there, equally bringing up the children with myself. Now, yes, the school runs, all of those key things, the homeworks, the meals on the table, all of that would have been down more to me, because he, obviously he was the main earner in the family, and it was, that's how it seemed to be like that back then. For me, the journey to have the freedom to really, explore and to work to the full potential didn't really happen until my children the youngest daughter was 18. And that was in about 2007, 2008. Up to that, I was working. I'd started the shop. The shop has now been going for 25 years, but we relocated it and really started to build on that in 2007, 2008, when my youngest daughter, she turned 18. And I felt I had given them a lot. They were both university ready. One was already at university, the other one was going to university. And I felt I had provided everything they needed up to that. They had a very secure, very easy background.
So what made you go for it, and how did you go for it in business?
I felt it was my time. I felt I had been the mum, all of that side of it. We'd taken our children on lovely holidays, we'd brought them up, all of those good things, all those family time and investment had happened. But for me now, the time was to go for it. And I seen an opportunity to relocate the business and to grow the business. So that's what I did. We took some risks. We relocated to a completely new premises, and we completely diversified the business as it was then.
Tell me about establishing the business in the first place. Your interiors business has been very successful over the last 25 years, but take me back to the very beginning. Why did you want to go into interiors?
I suppose I seen an opportunity then to do something, with that. The family business is an electrical business, and Ian's dad, Alan Little, he had just a very tiny little area within his business, and it had some lighting. So I decided to explore it, just to go and explore the opportunities. So I went to the trade shows, and from there it just kept going. My husband has been so supportive. We bought our first premises back then. We relocated our business. So it's been relocated in total 3 times. So we moved from one area to another much larger site, and we relocated the whole business then, and that was a 2.5 acre site. So that allowed me to develop a complete, so it started off as Alana Lighting. A lot of our customers still refer to it as Alana Lighting, and we sold lighting, and it just kept growing. We had lighting, then I brought in furniture, and it's just kept growing and growing to now we have kind of got the base that we are happy with and that works for our customer.
And when you were growing the business, did you want to keep growing and growing, or what type of business model did you apply there? Did you have a limit in mind as to, if it gets big, this big is big enough for me, this is enough for me to handle, or was the sky the limit for you?
I don't have any ceilings on anything I do. I don't probably think like that, but I'm very, very customer driven. I'm always thinking about what my customer wants. I feel I'm very well connected to the customer, and I feel my typical customer would be very similar to myself, or to my daughter, etc., etc. We get 3 generations shopping with us, and we have a really, really loyal customer base. So I suppose that has driven the customer journey. Always, what's the customer looking for? I think that's what retail's all about. So there hasn't been any kind of long-term planning there. It is a family business. My daughter's in the business with me. So I suppose that drives you to keep growing the business. Would I want multiple shops? No, I'm happy with one destination store and do it well in that destination store. That for me is the end, probably goal.
And over the last 25 years, what have been the major challenges that you've had to face and get over in order to be this successful?
Well, in 2007, 2008, we had just purchased this new property when the recession hit.
How did that feel?
That was probably, it was one of the biggest challenges probably that you could face. We had invested heavily in this new premises, but do you know what? I do think it was the best thing probably that ever happened, because it gave us an absolute grit and determination to make this work. So we've seen the retail model changing. We've seen it definitely evolving and changing, and we diversified completely. I mean, we took some serious risks. We we were an interior shop, and that was our knowledge base. And then we started food. So food was, we started a coffee shop. It was very small. It was 50 seats, and we just grew and grew that kind of that element of the business. We just developed it. And then the big ticket items were falling away, and we were watching competitors, some who'd been in the market a long time struggling. So we were sort of watching to see now, this is maybe a time to change again. So I observed my customer and I thought, well, what are they buying at the minute? So they're still buying their fashion. The ladies still wanted a little bit of fashion and they still wanted all of that. So that's when the boutique began. So we brought in ladies' fashions, and I went out and I went to the trade shows. I purchased everything for the season with really, no kind of knowledge of how that was going to work out. But from the very first day that we unveiled our ladies' boutique, it worked.
And when you take a risk, is it always a calculated risk?
Yes, I would say I would take calculated risks. I wouldn't be a big risk taker as such, but I will take calculated risks. I'll do my homework first. I'll definitely research it. I'll look at my customer, I'll talk to my customer, and I'll go out and research the brands and research the market first. I feel for me, it is a calculated risk. Each time I go in a new direction, it's definitely a calculated risk for me.
And how have you skilled yourself in business strategy over the last 25 years? You obviously have good business skills and a good eye for business, but did you have to upskill at any stage?
I did. I started out at Queen's University, and yes, I did a degree there, and it was great, and we covered some business and economics and things like that. But for me, I went back when my children were young, and I studied at the Ulster University. So when I was in my sort of mid-20s to late 20s, I went back to the Ulster University, and I found that they were very accommodating, because at that stage I was beginning my journey in the family business. So all of the learning I was allowed to apply to the business situations that I was in at that time. So I studied marketing, legal studies, finance. I just covered the broad sweep of a lot of the kind of business skills that then have stayed with me ever since. I've continued on. I'm a firm believer in lifelong learning. I don't think you don't need to panic if you don't have the degree when you're 18. I think it's there. It's up to you. The opportunities are there, and I have continued to any courses I see. I'll be I sign up for them. I go for it. I've done level 4 food management and safety just out of curiosity, because we have a coffee shop. I like to know probably the detail behind the things that I'm doing. I do like to have the knowledge to go back to, and I believe for me it's always been upskilling. It's always been learning from my peers, and I would work with different business consultants as well to just really improve what I do. I'm always open to new ideas, new ways of thinking. I think that's very important in my sector.
And with those new ways of thinking, how have you embraced the online presence that comes with having a retail shop or any sort of business these days? How have you embraced the world of Instagram?
Well, social media has been a steep learning curve. For us, I suppose, up until COVID, we used it as a tool to drive people in the door. So we never seen it as anything other than that. So we did our videos, we had our social media presence, but we never really considered it in any other terms. So we didn't have a website that was, we certainly didn't sell online. It wasn't something that we really worked at. So COVID hit, and it was a complete reset. Suddenly your destination store is now at a complete standstill. What do you do? So for the first few weeks, it was like, right, what am I gonna do here? How am I going to work something out here? I was at home. I am in shielding, but at that stage I was in the high risk group, so I couldn't leave the house. So I thought, right, I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna push myself right outside my comfort zone, and I'm gonna make these videos. So I got my husband to bring the stock home, and we took over our house. We have a family home, the kids are away, and I just took it over and I put the clothes on rails and I did videos, and I brought a Visa machine home and I started to sell over the phone. And I basically connected with people from all over the country, across Ireland and the UK. I got to know lots and lots of our customers, and for me, probably I learned more about what the customer wants from doing that than I probably ever really realised before. But I had no equipment. I was caught out. I didn't have the tripods. I didn't have anything. I had an iPhone, and that was it. I didn't
Balancing
even know.
on top of the books.
I literally had it on Tupperware boxes in my garden, and that's how I set it up. And I was trial and error. I was hitting the button and making the videos, but it worked. It really, really worked. And the power of social media and the power of e-commerce it was a game changer, I would say, for our business.
So has that instilled you with a little more confidence looking to the future, because the future is so uncertain at the minute?
I think, yes, it definitely does. I believe that there's a real interest in shopping local, and people buy from people. And I think if you do your job and you try to offer the customer to the best of your ability the information that they require, I think they will support you. And I've certainly been talking to other fellow retailers and they find the same. So I think it's up to you to try to understand where the customer's coming from. And also, I'm a believer in, try to be very real. Don't try to sell them something that they're not interested in. Look at where the customer's at the minute. What are the trends? What are they looking for? What's their lifestyle at the minute? Even what's their mindset at the minute? And approach it from that direction so that you are identifying closely with them, and try just to match that together as closely as you can. And I think if you do that, hopefully, you're on the right track.
What advice would you give to other women who feel that they might have an idea about going into business? With something maybe rattling around in their heads that they think this could work, but they just can't bring themselves to the point where they give it a go?
I think my advice would be, do your research first, because I think that is important, to research your market. And I think, go on, have a look. But I studied a lot in business, and I think you can take small steps to find out if it's going to work. So for example, if you have an idea, try it out on a few different people first. Ask their opinion. There's a thinking behind fail fast, fail quickly. Can't remember, but not all business ideas are going to work. But I think you have to give it a go. And if you're serious about it and you're passionate enough, you'll make it work. So you've got to think back. First of all, it's supply and demand. I studied economics, and I think that's the starting point. So supply and demand is absolutely critical in this. But if you believe you have a product or a service that someone's interested in, go for it.
And finally, Carol, looking back with 25 years of a very successful business under your belt, your family raised, what would you say to the younger Carol now if you had to give her some advice?
I think probably trust your instincts. Most of us do have that sort of compass within us to guide us, and sometimes we're slow to trust it. And I would say for me, maybe just trusting it a little bit sooner and just having a little bit more confidence in myself probably would be one of the things that I've maybe learned as I've got older.
Thank you very much, Carol. It's been lovely to talk to you today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.